Wow, Neil Armstrong. Hey, wait a minute. You're supposed to be on the moon. I just saw it on TV.
Oh, there's a tape delay, and with all solar winds.
Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
You don't see the curvature of the earth. That stuff is flat.
GLOBEBUSTERS taking over. Bye-bye, moon man and rover. NASA's so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is GLOBEBUSTERs taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster, but the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is. Get the shovel for the slice of a piecing up the puzzle. Need to burst your bubble.
Volume die?
Zach, when Karen joined, everybody muted out on the show if they're not hearing it. Something happened where the audio quit.
All right. Well, I love that song so much. I'm going to go back and play it just because we can. Hope that's all right with the audience.
I didn't hear anything, so
Okay.
let's rock.
Let's rock.
Down, be humble, got the body by the fumble. You get mad because of this fight about your uncle.
And then they call me the liar. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable the pathetic techniques that they have to use to prove their heliocentric model.
Vibes at the president, Jan got the evidence. It laying desert wisdoms, that shark from is evident. That the earth electric and it's resonant. Your residence is heavens, and I hope you settle in like some sediment. If we so wrong, why they lying to discredit it? That's not too intelligent. That's a guy, not an in court, but we ain't really in the settlement. It's time to awaken from the pseudoscience sedatives.
GLOBEBUSTERs taking over. Bye-bye, moon man and rover. NASA's so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is. GLOBEBUSTERs taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster, but the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is.
Inner World Productions.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
All right. Sorry about that, everybody. This is GLOBEBUSTERS Tech. I am Zach. Good times for all. And today we're going to be talking about surveying the plane. And we have a special guest with us today, an actual surveyor who isn't a young buck at it either. He's been at it for quite some time and knows what he's doing. He's done all kinds of tests and observations with the community even. Yeah, just a huge addition to the community. But before we get to him, we're going to say hello to the rest of the panel and see what's been going on. It's been a couple weeks since we've been live. Cammie is probably not going to be here the whole show. She is out of town and not very comfortable right now. Cammie, how are you doing?
I am melting. I am currently on a deck in Denver, Colorado. They say the temperature is 93, but I have an air conditioner blowing hot air on me, so I'm sure I'm at least over 100 degrees out here. I am here
Oh,
with my
man.
mother, who my mother does not understand, or she says, I don't understand anything you're talking about, so I would rather not watch. So I am trying to do the daughter thing and be out here for a minute. I am awesome. I have a mother. Those that don't know, broke her tibia, and she's doing extremely well. She's walking. It was just a minor, tiny thing next to her ankle. So it turns out to be a very, very minor. And she's up walking and doing good. But I will be leaving in a little bit to take a little bit better care of her. But it's nice to be here. I miss everybody so much.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that your mom is feeling much better. That is awesome. Yes, you be a good daughter and go do all your daughterly duties. We understand. But thank you for showing up. It's so good having you here. Next up, we have Mr. Kyle Adams. Kyle, how have you been doing these last couple weeks, man?
Been doing well. I've been doing a new series called Flat Earth Science for the Super Stubborn. It's been really fun. Yeah,
That's a good title.
Next week.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of the stuff you're putting out. It kind of shocked me when I saw the first video with your new haircut.
Oh,
Threw me
yeah.
for a little loop there.
Yeah.
You went pretty extreme from, with the length.
From the long hair to the short. Yeah.
It looks good, though. It definitely looks good, man. Yeah. Awesome to have you here. All right. And last but certainly not least, Miss Karen B. Karen, I know it's got to be getting crazy for you already. How are you feeling, ma'am?
I'm feeling good. It's been hectic.
I bet. Getting Flattoberfest all set up and ready to go. I am excited.
Yeah. Once I get a place to do it at, it sort of takes on a life of its own. So that's one good thing about it. But, there's also, stuff not related to Flattoberfest that still needs to get done. So,
Yeah.
and it's a busy time of year because the weather's nice and you know how it is. There's garden stuff going on.
Oh, yeah. How's Ted doing? He's back feeling any better?
He's getting better. Yes.
Good. Tell him not to push it too much. Still, we're getting old. We got to watch that stuff.
I know. I've got to take time to heal.
All right. So, when do you think we'll have any information about ticket prices and stuff like that for Flattoberfest?
I actually have tickets posted on the website, but I just haven't. I'm a little behind on parts of it because I've had stuff going on here at the house that need care. Yeah, tickets are posted. I haven't put anything for RVs yet. So, and there's going to be, I've already said that there's going to be like only a handful of spaces for RVs. Unless you want to do, I don't know, it's going to be that's going to be a complicated part. But I have hotel information posted. I have the dates posted. I have I have camping tickets and non-camping tickets. So there's hotel information. So if you scroll down there, those are the 3 closest hotels. And it's like not that far from downtown Spartanburg. So there's more hotels than that. But I don't want to list every single hotel. You know what I'm saying? You're muted or something's happening.
I was going to say, yeah, it's not too far from the highway either. I mean,
yeah,
you
it's
kind of
right
pass
off the freeway.
An outbuilding that's not really part of the festival, but it's, on the property, and you pass right by it on the interstate. So it's there. Yeah. But it is so awesome, guys. It is like out in the middle of the woods. We're surrounded by woods. You're not going to hear other cars driving by or anything like that.
It's kind of a trip how it's right there, kind of centrally located. But when you're in there, it feels like you're hidden away. It's like,
yeah, it's so weird. Yeah, you look at it on a
like
map
you go
and you're
into
like,
a little
"That's not
void.
secluded."
You're all, oh.
Mm-hmm.
It is truly a magical place. It's 5 minutes from my house. But the thing about it is it's 55 acres, but it's well done with the layout of it perfectly, connecting the places that all of the places are close to each other within it, like the exhibits and that. There would be, but they're connected by things like uneven steps to the stairway of, or the stairway of heaven, and little whimsical things. Everything is extremely for nighttime well lit. All of the paths have fairy lights and torches or whatever you want to call across it. But even again at nighttime, it's a dream. It's lit up. It goes over the 55 acres. You can be in a maid party area. You can find yourself all kinds of little nooks, crannies, little private gazebos that you can go and get off to and talk, you know, if you want to do something specific with people. But there's, again, so many different pergolas, gazebos, tiny little niches. And then the main areas we have are the best stage, I mean, wonderful stages. And the setup is a dream. The setup is a dream.
It's similar to where you might see like a Renaissance fair happen.
Very
Yeah,
similar.
I got that vibe too. You could easily set one up there, and like you don't see any parts of, you know, modern society, kind of. A
Yeah.
lot of it's natural.
And
I
it's
mean, there's
pet friendly, like you can bring your dog,
Mhm.
have a leash for your dog, but you can bring your dog. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. We got some new stuff for How the World Works. I am
Nice.
super excited. Yeah, Nathan, Commercial Sound and Video, who's already such a big helper, is gonna he built one of those Cymatic things a while back, the speaker system and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, we can have all those things now. All the
yeah,
things.
yep, we're gonna be doing
All
that. I'm still
the
working on the tube.
visuals, all the tactile learning, all of the things that that you can't do indoors. That's what I want to do at this one. That's what excites me about doing the outdoor thing. I really want to get a Fresnel lens so we can fry stuff.
Yeah, I got bunches of them. I got a bunch
Oh,
of
we
them.
have that.
Yeah.
We have the Fresnel lenses. We're going to be doing the Rubens tube, which is again things we cannot do inside. Where we set, you get to see resonance. You get to see the wave function in flame. It's a tube full of gas that drills. Basically, what it is it's a long tube, but you fill it with gas. You drill holes in the top. You put a membrane on one end. And when you play music into it, it hits the membrane. The music actually, you see the wave function of the music in flames. It shows you what you're looking
Yeah,
at.
it's really neat. Really neat.
So some of our equipment and things, a lot of it, we would never ever be able to do that. Sorry, I have the phone. We would never be able to do inside, and this opens up so many opportunities. And so I know our exhibit for sure is going to be by far the best one we have, because it's the only we have the space to spread out within. You have the outdoors, where a lot of our stuff they don't want us to bring it indoors. And if people were at the one in downtown downtown Spartanburg, where we did it at Magnolia, and the
I
lights
thought I was
flickering.
gonna destroy stuff. I thought I was gonna mess up their electrical system.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that here.
We don't have to worry about that, but we couldn't even run a lot of our stuff because we were making the lights and their speaker and everything flicker, and it's like, oh man! But this time we get to play. We get to have a party.
And all the old stuff will be there too. So if you've never seen us before and you want to feel a gyroscope, or make the anti-gravity yourself between the two plates by turning the Van de Graaff generator, it's all going to be there for you guys to play with.
If you want to feel the invisible forces.
Natural woo-woo or mystical woo-woo forces, as some people like to call them.
Yeah, but it's just invisible forces. It's the invisible forces. It's just part of the physical world, but it's really awesome when you can feel that stuff. Like I really want to bring, and I don't know if you guys have this in how the world works, but do you guys have any big quartz crystals where you can put them next to a big neodymium magnet, like feeling the resistance between the quartz crystal and the neodymium magnet? Like people don't expect that, and it's great when you can feel it and you're like, oh wow, there's something there. This thing has a property and this thing has properties, and when the properties interact, they do weird stuff. Like people need to have that experience, right?
Yeah. Oh
They
yeah.
have to.
Mark, for sure, the Tesla coils and the noble gases will be there for sure.
For sure. We're going to have all of them, and we call them invisible forces, but we're going to, again, like the waveform of music, we're going to do our best to let you even visualize the ones that are invisible, because there are ways to either feel them or make them visible,
Oops.
Hmm.
and it's exciting. It's very exciting. It's motivation. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for doing this.
So tickets are on sale at flatearthfestivals.com.
Mm-hmm.
I even typed in just Flattoberfest, and this came right up on my Google search.
Yeah.
And it was the first thing to pop up. So yeah, you could, but yeah, flatearthfestivals.com for all your ticket information and stuff. Is there a Telegram group yet for or any of that kind of stuff?
I think there's a link to the Telegram group on the website.
Okay.
Um,
Friendly meetup, recurring meetup, flow, recurring meetup, past meetup.
go to contact. Maybe I scroll down. Yeah, there's the Telegram join.
Okay.
Oh wait, no,
Yeah.
that's not the. Oh goodness. Okay, I have to put the link there. That's
Okay.
not the Flattoberfest group. That's just the main chat group. Okay, my bad.
Well, it'll be there.
I did have it there at one point, but maybe that page isn't visible anymore because the event is over.
Yeah. Yeah.
I told you I'm behind.
Let's manifest a reality that serves us. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff, Karen. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. I'll remember to put a link on that that Flattoberfest page. But yes, there is a Telegram group. If you go into Telegram, I think it's I don't know if it's a public group or not, but it's called Flattoberfest. Actually, I think it's called, the link to it is Flattober. Yeah, it's Flattoberfest 2021 at Flattoberfest 2021 in Telegram because I made it in 2021, but I've just kept using the same group for all Flattoberfest stuff. So if you go in Telegram, it's at Flattoberfest 2021.
Nice.
And that's the
All
group.
right. I'm excited. I can't wait.
Any
Yeah.
chance of you bring in your solar telescope, Chris Van Maitre?
Oh, yes. And our guest,
Oh,
the surveyor
Sorry.
of well
Sorry.
over, what is it now, Chris? Over 30 years?
Oh,
you've
yeah,
been
over
surveying?
Years.
Surveyor for over 30 years, Mr. Chris Van Maitre.
Thank you for the intro. Yeah, hopefully this evening I think you remember me, you, Glenn, and Gavin talking about this for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to figure out how we could explain this in layman's terms so that people could understand. A lot of this I'm going to shortcut through because a lot of it's just mathematics that they've created.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I can explain how they use the state plane coordinate to project their globe into surveying and how they get surveyors to actually believe that there is curvature and they do survey on a ball. Because it's just like a lot of things, it's compartmentalized. You have your planar surveyors, and then you have your geodetic surveyors. And the planar surveyors, all they do is take the information and the calculations that are given to them by the geodetic surveyors, and they apply this to plane surveying. And I've actually worked with quite a few surveyors. When I told them, have you ever tried to break down the numbers and what they're giving you on these sheets and scale factors? And they're like, no. They get it all figured out. Just use this.
How convenient.
Yeah. And again, too, part of it is it's just like, just like anything. If you start talking technical stuff, most people's eyes just kind of glaze over and they really don't want to know too much about it. They just tell me what I need to know. Where if it's drama or anything like that, then everybody's all in on it. But when it comes to the technical, mathematical, or scientific, it's people just glaze over them. They just want a quick answer.
Yeah. But what does it all mean? Oh, we don't need to worry about that. Just give them this answer, and that's all they need to know, right?
Exactly. So hopefully, I can present this, and after I'm done, you might have a pretty good idea of how how they pass this by and try and hide our actual plane. And they do this with what's called the state plane coordinate system. That pretty much says it all. So we're done. We can go home now. So
main coordinate system.
So I'll start off sharing my screen. I've got a bunch of pictures that I'm going to show and explain as I go along here.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah. Let's see if we can.
I wonder if I can zoom that in anymore. Oh, there we go.
How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, we'll start off here. And it says a projection datum factor converts grid distances, which are the state plane coordinates. And I'll explain and show you a picture of what that is, to ground and surface distances. If you were to use a total station, basically a measuring tape, total station is equipment that we use to do real accurate measurements with. To measure distances between 2 points on the ground and then use GPS to measure the locations of the same 2 points and calculate the distance between those 2 points on the state plane grid, the two distances would be close but not exactly the same. This is due to the curvature of the Earth combined with the elevation above sea level of the projected location. The grid, state plane projection, is trying to present the elevated curved surface of the Earth on a flat plane at sea level. The projected datum factor was more prevalent before GPS became popular because total stations were the primary tools used for surveying.
Okay, so we've got plane, flat sea level, and then they're talking about curvature of the Earth as in being like hills and mountains and elevations above sea level?
No, they're talking about the curvature of the Earth.
Okay, so they're trying to apply a globe model on top of a flat plane.
Exactly. So here's the next picture, and this is how they do it. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, here's what the state plane coordinate system is, how it's going to set up on a flat plane. So then they use these ellipsoid heights, and they use the actual ground heights, and they calculate what they call a scale factor. And the scale factor, basically what that does is they shorten the distances. They actually take the distances and they make them shorter because supposedly when you see the curve up here, this distance is longer than if you just cut straight through the circle.
Right.
Okay. So what they do is they use, like I said, they use all these calculations and they use their map projections, which you got the Traverse Mercator projection, which is the north-south projection. Then they've got the Lambert conformal projection.
Oh, I don't think I've ever even heard of that one.
So this one here, basically, that's why they have the ISS up there. They take a big piece of paper and it circles this paper around the Earth. And then they can plot dots of the latitude and longitude onto the paper. And then they send it back down. I'm being sarcastic there.
Is that why it goes?
So
real quick before you go on, could you click on the marker and show people up above to the left one? the actual markers that you go and find out in the
Oh.
field?
Okay, yeah, I'm going to be talking about points, or when they give like coordinates. And basically, a point is anything that you can put in the ground. And if you can see this, basically this is a 3-inch brass cap set in a huge boulder, like a stone. But they can put them in the ground, and they'll pour concrete around them so that they make them solid so that they don't move. Or you can even just drive like a nail in the ground and put a coordinate on it. So a point is anything that's stable, set in the ground, that you can put a coordinate on.
Now, do you come across many of these changing elevation?
These were set at all different elevations. They said,
No, I mean, like you had a previous marking there and a previous measurement on that one, but when you go check it this time, now it's like 2 inches or 3 inches higher than it was before.
no, they're always they always check really good, elevation wise and horizontally.
Okay. And how many of those would you say are in the local area around you? The Houston area?
Oh, geez, they probably have thousands of them.
In just the Houston area alone. Man,
Yeah.
it had to take forever to go and do this across the nation.
Yeah, these ones are the old ones that they did way back in the day. They went all the way across the United States setting these. And then from these points, the cities and counties set their survey markers off of them.
Wow.
Then they also set section corners where they break up properties. Section corners are like a mile by a mile by a mile, a square mile. And they set points like this at each corner of each mile.
Wow.
So when I'm talking about coordinates, so everybody kind of knows, I drew this up. So coordinates are like a northing and an easting. So for an example here, this would be 100 by 100 coordinate. So if you go 5 feet north and 5 feet east, you'd have a coordinate of 105 by 105. And the same thing here, if you went 10 foot north, 10 foot east, that coordinate would be a northing of 110 by 110. Is that, you understand?
Yeah.
Crystal
Okay.
clear. So far, so good, Chris. You're doing a great job.
Okay, so what they did, we'll go back to this one. So they take these ground coordinates or state plane coordinates, and they come up with a scale factor, and their scale factor is based off of, they assume the radius of the earth, with which they use 20,906,000. See if I can click this up. No. So how they do that is we've got 2 points here, like they're just like that little brass monument that I showed you. And one of them is at 5,437 feet. Then they have another one at 9,099 feet. What they do is you take both those elevations, you add them together, you divide by 2, and you add that to their radius of the earth, which is 20,906,000. And then you divide that by 20,906,000 to come up with a number that's 0.9999, which is less than 1. So then what you do is you
Just
take
enough to bend it at the edges.
So what you do is you take that you take that and you use that scale factor, and you times that times the actual ground distance to come up with a distance that's shorter, which is projected down to their state plane coordinate system.
So there's right there, you can see the actual distance.
Yeah, which is
that somebody
1,126.21. Okay.
So when it comes to a person's property, are you telling me that it's an inflated amount? We don't really have that much property. They're actually telling us we have more than we actually have?
No. No, if you measure on the ground, you have the correct distance. They use this state plane coordinate system for a lot of GPS work whenever they're surveying out large areas.
Yeah, how far do your surveys go up to, Chris? Like if you were to do a planar survey and not a geodetic survey, what's the difference in the sizes?
Oh, well, I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Like on the surveying you do, what would be a large size survey?
Oh, I've done 15, 20, 30 mile surveys. And they use, whenever you're doing big, long surveys like that, they use this, whenever you use GPS, you use state plane coordinates. Then you have to convert your distances over. They'll give you a scale factor. Let me kick up a sheet here. So this is one of the points that when we were looking at those distances and those elevations, this is a sheet that they'll give you. And they'll give you a scale factor that you need to use to bring those distances up to ground distances. So you take this number and you multiply it times your coordinates to get it up to ground distances.
It's so weird. Now, if the Earth were a sphere, would you have to do it this way, you think?
Well, a lot of surveyors are like, a good example would be it turns it into brain damage, absolute brain damage, and they do it on purpose. It would be like, let's say you're going to make a cake. Okay, so whenever you make this cake, you're going to measure out a 1/4 cup of flour. Well, then, no, not a 1/4 cup. You have to add a scale factor to this. So you have to multiply this by a scale factor, and you have to add a little extra flour, and you have to add a little extra everything to come up with the correct recipe. Or if you're a carpenter and you go to measure, if you're going to measure a board, you got to measure the board, and they're like, no. On this house, you have to use this scale factor. So 2 feet is not 2 feet. You have to use the scale factor, and actually 2 feet is 2 1/4 inches.
Wow. Is it that? Yeah. Is it that drastic?
It is. It's a pain. A lot of surveyors wonder why they have to use this. Well, the reason why they have to use this is because they want to hide. Once they come up with GPS, I think it would have been fairly evident that we live on a flat plane. So they had to come up with mathematics to hide this. And to do this, they come up with the state plane coordinate system.
Okay, so we got a whole bunch of extra flour in the size of the United States as a whole, or just individual states.
No. Let's go back to this picture, because I think, okay, on the ground here, when you're up here on the ground, these are actual distances. So it isn't any bigger, but what they did is basically what they did is in the state plane coordinate system, they took the actual ground distances, which are good, and they projected them down, scaled down the distances to come up with the state plane coordinate system to get everybody to work off of.
Okay, so the distances are correct, but they're just trying to, I'm trying to think, they're adjusting them somehow, but they're not making them smaller. They're making them, or they're not making them bigger with extra flour. They're actually taking out the flour and saying that's how it works on the globe.
Right. So we could go the other way. If you were getting ready to bake a cake and you were going to go down to from the ground to state plane coordinates, you would have to take out a little. You would have to multiply it by 0.999 and change to make it smaller. So your quarter cup of flour would be a little less than a quarter cup of flour.
Okay.
So the dotted line there, that would be what they scale it down to, right?
They scale it, no, to this straight line right here.
Oh, to the straight line.
Yeah. So
That
basically,
makes no sense. I don't, yeah.
Okay,
That's
so what I'm
crazy.
understanding here is it's kind of like taking a flat piece of paper and then you try to wrap that around the ball and you get a lot of overlap. And so in order to make up for the overlap, to make it seem smooth, you have to take paper away, all the wrinkles, and so you're subtracting here. You're taking flour out of the equation instead of adding more, right?
right. But if you wanted to, let's say you had two different recipes. You got your ground recipe, which is bigger, and your state plane, which is smaller. So it's basically what they're doing is they're just playing with distances, with scale factors.
So what happens if we punch in the feet they give us and divide it by that number? Would that give us the actual distances of the known Earth that we're allowed to traverse on?
Yes. So like this right here, this is the actual measured ground distance. This here is the adjusted down to the state plane coordinate system, which is shorter.
So Earth is actually bigger than they're telling us.
No.
Well, on the plane surveys?
On state plane, yeah.
State plane.
Yeah. So the reason why it's really confusing is because that's the way they make it. It is confusing. For us surveying, when we have to bounce back and forth from one distance to another, and whenever you're doing it, like I said, it'd be the same thing as if you were building a house and you had to convert all your measurements over every time you've done something.
Oh,
They do it intentionally. They do that. They make it confusing so you can't make sense of it. That makes perfect sense.
Right.
I can't wait to go back on this. I do have to go, people. So I'm going to say goodbye. But Chris, yeah, exactly. I don't want to miss this though. This is too good. I will be back on it. But bye, guys. I'll be back.
Okay.
So yeah, that's exactly what they want to do, so that, like I said in the beginning, so whenever the planar surveyors are working in the state plane coordinate system, they just say, well, we'll just use these scale factors that they give us and it works just fine. But if you're going out to do a small survey, you just use regular ground distances. So the next thing is that if you're surveying on the ground, it's a 1.000 scale.
Yeah, it's the actual
scale. Yeah, it's a 1-to-1 scale, basically. So that's another thing that whenever you go from state plane coordinate systems, which is a 0.9999 and change, whenever you go back up to ground, it's your 1.004 and change. So how can you be over a 1 scale when you're actually on the ground?
Yeah.
That's like when you have 100%, you shouldn't have more than 100%. 100% is everything. How can you have more than everything?
Wow. And when you bring this up to other surveyors, like your past, guys you've worked with, did any of them, could they even wrap their head around?
No, it's the same answer. Well, they look at you, they got it all figured out. Just use that scale factor and go out and do your job.
Yep.
Don't look at the man behind the curtain. And then you're like, I see something here. There's something right here beyond the curtain. No, don't look over there. Just focus on what you're doing there, and don't worry about all that.
Yeah, and I point out that I'm like, it's over 1. Whenever we set up a transit, you're using a 1 scale. So whenever we use state plane coordinate systems and we're going back from grid to ground or from surface to ground, we're over 1. How does that work? It doesn't make any sense. So in this graph, it's another thing I want to point. In this graph, okay, let's say that you bought this piece of property and it has a big hill. This green thing is actually the surface. Okay, so when we go out to measure, we don't lay a tape on the ground and then measure this hills and bumps to come up with the acreage that you own. We always measure level and horizontally. So let's say if we were measuring going up this hill and down the other side, we got plumb bob, which is like a metal brass thing with the tip on it so that you know that you're perfectly plumb, which would represent this line. So then this line would be the tape. So you have 2 guys, you'd hold the tape and you'd measure here and you'd put a point on the ground. Then you'd do the same thing. You'd hold the tape up here and you'd measure and you do this stair step all the way. So your actual measurement is from right here to the end over here.
So and that's what you're trying to come up with. The answer you're trying to come up with.
Yeah, this blue line down here at the bottom is exactly what you measure. And one of the first jobs I ever done as a surveyor is we have what they call a hand level. And I would stand back. In the old days, we didn't have electronic measurements. We had an actual tape. And I would stand back and I would tell the guys exactly that when they were level holding their tape. So this says all you need to know. You're measuring perfectly level and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. So how do they justify this on the ground? This curvature. Because you're actually doing this everywhere you go. You're actually doing what they have the state plane coordinate system set up to do. The reason why, and that's why I say when you were saying that the ground distances are actually bigger, no, they're not actually bigger. Actually, what they're doing is they're shrinking the distances so that they can make them work and give the surveyors, or make the surveyors think that they're actually working on a curved surface, when actually you're just measuring a straight horizontal plane, just like that last picture that I showed you.
That's a great example right there.
It's still really kind of a hard thing for me to wrap my mind around, because I'm kind of looking at this flat surface and then all of a sudden you're seeing this bulge kind of a ballooning up, and so I'm thinking of like expanding. I'm like, how is that shrinking if it's bigger? And I don't know, that's the part that's hard for me to wrap my mind around.
Well, it's not actually. Like I said, we do all our measurements are horizontal measurements, level.
So they even level it as a plane
backwards. So you're claiming it's bigger, but the actual thing is smaller. So that would be shrinking.
So maybe this will help. We'll show this picture. Can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Okay. So all they're doing is the state plane coordinate system. They're coming down at an angle, and they're showing this distance is the ground distance, and state plane coordinate. This line up here is just shorter. They shrink the distance. They add scale factors to it. They put mathematics to it, and they actually just shrink the distance. They're both exactly the same thing. They're just playing with the distances and scaling them down to get people to believe that they're working here.
Okay. So they're shrinking it down to where it's accurate, and they're initial thing is inflated, but they're shrinking it down so to make it accurate, right?
Well, they're shrinking it down because they're shrinking it down to try and give the impression that there's curvature.
Uh-huh.
And the way that on the state plane coordinates, because what they're doing here, whenever you have this line right here, this dotted line, if you flatten that out, it would be longer than this line underneath because it's a straight line, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So that's exactly what they're doing is you're actually measuring two level lines, but what they're trying to do is they come up with all this mathemagics to make the surveyors believe that they're working on a curved surface.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you kind of getting what I'm trying to say here?
So they got the two
So,
lines.
yeah,
The
think of it
curved
this
surface
way,
is a lot
Kyle.
longer than the longer line, and they're trying to justify their line being longer.
Well, yeah. See, like if you took the actual, if that dotted line there was straightened out, it would be a little bit longer than the projected one down there, the bottom one. So they're
Right.
taking the actual length of the Earth and then kind of curving it so the ends, you notice how the ends are pretty much the same now
Yeah.
on that picture? That's what they're doing right there.
Uh-huh.
They're saying you're actually measuring, you're cutting through the Earth here because there's a curve. So you have to be cutting through the Earth. It couldn't be that you're not cutting through the Earth because you're on a ball. So that's their imaginary straight line they're drawing through the actual Earth to make their measurement on. And then they draw an elevation from that.
Okay.
So would that be considered sea level is where they started?
Yeah, they started at sea level. So in this example, I think this peak station's at 9,900 or not 9,099 feet above sea level.
Okay.
The other
Yeah,
one,
So
it's
they're
not about the
taking the
length of
actual
line,
measure
it's
from
about
sea
shrinking
level.
it this way. That's what you're talking about.
so this dotted line right here, if you made that flat, if you flattened it out,
Uh-huh.
it would be longer than this distance right here.
And
Yeah.
that would be the actual measurement. That'd be the real measurement.
Yeah, the real measurement is up here.
And so they take it and they make it a little bit shorter so they can draw that other line down below, that
So-
map projection plane.
Right. And they do that, like I said, they want surveyors and everybody to think that they're surveying on this curved line, but they're not. This line is actually flat. And they just take the distance, this flat line up here, just imagine that this dashed line is flat and
Okay.
long. Okay, so then they put in all this brain damage, this mathemagics, and they come up with a or a coordinate system that is just scaled down.
Yeah, so they take a flat plane and just bend it a little bit to make it a curve.
No, they don't bend it. No, they don't bend it. It's straight and flat, and all they
Yeah,
do
no,
is
but I'm saying that's what they're trying to make you think is,
Yeah,
you're taking it from this and they're making you think in your head that it's actually bent like this and you're just measuring through the Earth here.
yeah, exactly.
So here's the flat Earth that you're actually measuring. And for them to get you to measure something like a curve, you'd have to be cutting through it, because all your plumb bobs are all pointing down and whatnot. So you're measuring to the center of the Earth, they think. So in order for that line for you to get you to think you're on this, they have to scrooge the edges in a little bit because the distance is still the same, right? Like if you say it's a mile from here to here and that's as far as you can measure, but you have to put a curvature of the Earth in there, you're going to have to scrooge this line down a little bit to get it to do that right there.
Exactly.
So it's still like if you look at this picture, the edges of the picture, say that's the only known distance that you can measure, and those have to be set in stone, right? But in order for you to draw in a curvature of the Earth, you're gonna have to, or to make people think they're on that curvature of the Earth, but they're actually measuring straight, they're gonna have to lower the distance a little bit
Right.
that
So
they
if you're,
give you.
right. If you're working like GPS and state plane coordinate systems, you go out and take your measurements, and then you add the scale factor to it, and then they call that bringing it from grid to ground or grid to surface. So you when you're measuring, these distances are actually shorter than if you actually measured with the tape on the ground. So then you add a scale factor of 1.3 zeros and change, and then it'll make that distance longer, and voila, you have your surface distance from grid. The imaginary coordinate system underneath your feet.
And it really doesn't curve that much. If you look at the two different lines there coming from the center of the earth, imagine that is what they're measuring. Not so much, you know, from way to the left to way to the right. And you see the curve isn't really all that much.
Right.
Right in there. That extra distance right there down to that one below isn't all that much different. Like you said, it's 1.000, and then you start adding in your numbers. So it's a very teeny tiny number. What is that, to the 10,000th?
No, actually, some of those in, like, if you used a scale factor of 1.304 in 2,000 feet, that's a half a foot.
Wow. Yeah, I can't believe it when you said at 2 feet, it's a quarter of an inch.
Well, I just threw that number out of my head.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow, that's huge.
But still 2,000 feet, and you're talking a half a foot. So if you're building a road or a bridge or a building, or you're building a big complex and you're using state plane coordinates, you could be off a foot and a half. And a lot of surveyors, they don't like using it.
Yeah, well, I could imagine, yeah, because they know that it's not accurate.
Yeah, well, it's complete brain damage for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, could you imagine trying to build a bridge and coming up a foot short?
Yeah,
it's not going to work.
And I forgot to say that in the beginning. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, you've heard that they don't take earth curvature into account whenever they're building roads and bridges. Yeah, they do. They use the state plane coordinate system, so they get people to believe that they're taking it into consideration, but they're actually not.
So they start off already with not the right data, not the accurate data.
Right. So let me show you this. This is actually a project I was working on last week. So these are the coordinates. See if I can zoom in here. So they got surface northing, surface easting. Then they got grid northing, grid easting. So if you go over here, they tell you that you have to get from the grid or the state plane coordinates, you have to multiply the grid coordinates, which is the state plane coordinates, by 1.3012 to come up with your actual surface coordinates or surface distances.
Wow. So when you get them from the state, they actually tell you to convert it to the real thing.
Or in this case, they actually converted them for you. They give you the grid and they also give you the surface.
Wow.
But on a lot of jobs, they'll just have grid coordinates. Or whenever you're done, you have to turn in as-built on all this stuff, and you have to convert all this back down to grid coordinates. And then another reason why they do this is they use the GIS network for like Google Earth and all that stuff. So all these municipalities use these grid coordinates to map out water lines, gas lines, telephone lines.
Man. So that's, how long is that right there? I see the two arrows in green there at the bottom. Is that the distance that you're starting and ending?
Oh, right here?
Yeah.
No, those are just the names of the points. Those
Okay.
identify the points.
Wow. Yeah, that's like looking at electrical schematics to me, pretty much.
Yeah, I hear you there.
So again, so if you think about anything that you do, carpenter, or let's say you're a mechanic working on a car, and let's say it's a Ford. You're going to work on a Ford. Well, you're going to go to the store and you got to buy a wrench. But on the Ford, they use instead of a 1/4 inch or 7/16 socket, you have to add a scale factor to that. Then go to the store and buy that exact wrench or socket to get it to work on the Ford vehicle. Then you go to work on the Chevy vehicle, and then you got to add a scale factor for the wrench, and you got to go buy the actual wrench and that scale factor to work on any of the nuts and bolts on that vehicle.
Oh man, that sounds like a really tough job to wrap your head around. Surveying, like you said, most of them just go out there and do it, right? They don't ask questions, not trying to figure anything out. Just go and take my measurements and do my job.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't have to know what it means. This is just the measurements.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the way schooling goes these days. Is just kind of what the textbook says. Don't dive any deeper than what the textbook says. Try to don't find out like what observations had to lead up to this claim in the textbook. Just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
you gotta. And they try to jam like a whole bunch of stuff into the curriculum, so you don't really have time to sit and dive deep into the curriculum either. It's just we got to get on to the next subject.
and again, who do you think would be able to accurately measure whether there's any curvature or not? That would be the surveyors. But when you're dealing with this,
yeah. Well, yeah, you would think it would just pop it into their brain, like.
But it doesn't, because they are absolutely just everyone has bought into this system.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't have doubted the globe at all either.
What was your awakening story like then? Like, what was it like for you when you first kind of put the puzzle pieces together and saw the big picture?
Well, the first thing that come to my mind is we run differential leveling, where you set up an instrument and you transfer elevations. And I got to thinking about that, and I'm like, now they did this from the West Coast to the East Coast. They definitely would have figured out there was something wrong here. with elevations, you would have come up with it.
You should have been like way down into the bottom of the ocean almost by the time you got to the other end.
Because you're setting up your level, and you're doing balance shots you're taking measurements from a level telescope, and you're turning around and you just keep projecting this line as you're going across the United States.
Wow. Kind of like with the green thing, right? That green hill with the blue things. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Going across the United States like that?
Yeah. If you were, let's say that, you would transfer an elevation here. Then your next one, you'd be level, you'd transfer an elevation. And basically, what they did was they run from the West Coast to the East Coast. And then whenever you do leveling, you go from wherever you start, you have to go back and make sure that you close out at the exact same elevation.
Oh, man, that had to take forever.
Oh, yeah. Going over the mountains. Whenever I was in Colorado surveying in the mountains and looking for survey control points and stuff like that, I'm like, man, those guys were men's men.
Yeah, they didn't have all the roads and all that kind of stuff to go driving up and.
or GPS where you
Just find it. Yeah.
just
Oh,
find
flash flood! All that work you did. Time to start over.
Yeah, those guys would just they'd start in one place and just camp and just work their way all the way across the United States.
So yeah, like when Mount St. Helens went off and all that earth moved, I'm sure a lot of geological surveys had to get moved. Did they go back in right after that, or when it settles down and do a whole new survey on the area?
See, and that's I've asked a few surveyors about that, never have got answers like these points here. The ones that are set in the ground. Yeah, you would think like in California that they would have to redo those all the time after earthquakes.
Yeah, you would think it might move a little bit, go check it, have to change the numbers on it or something like that. Yeah.
Close enough. Close enough. It's not that big of a difference, even though it's like 30 feet difference. It's close enough.
But yeah, I've been to points like this that were set in the 1800s and they check horizontally and vertically.
Wow. So it really doesn't, the ground doesn't change all that much in places. I'm sure there's some places it does, but
yeah, I'm sure there is, like I said, where they have earthquakes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I've never run across surveyors from California that actually knew whether they moved, where they went out and shot them and then they had to go back to them.
Wow. Makes you wonder, are they doing their job correctly, you know? Because you would think some of them have to move sometimes.
I've seen pictures of stuff where it was like before and after.
Yeah, Yellowstone had a lot of cool stuff where like,
Yeah.
the hill was down and the trees were there, and then they showed the same thing and it's like raised up like 20 feet. It happened over like 70, 80 years or whatnot, but yeah, the ground changes.
Mhm.
That was awesome, Chris.
Well, hopefully everybody's kind of got a good idea of how they use their mathemagics to fool most of the surveyors. And again, it's compartmentalized. You got the geodetic surveyors that come up with all these scale factors in these sheets that we use to go out and shoot these points with. And the planar surveyors just grab these scale factors, add it to them, or put it in their software on their computer. Now most of it's in software, where you just put the coordinates in software and it calculates your distances and off they go.
Smartphones don't make you smart, right? That's the easiest way to cover it up, is just digitalize it so you're not doing as much in your head, and then you don't need to worry about all that other stuff, and then it's even more compartmentalized.
Yeah, you don't even think about the math. You know, you don't have to. I just put in this little box right here, and then the answer pops out over here, and I'm done for the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I continually like to say, good math should tell a story. You can't just have numbers without meanings. Everything should mean something. And so I like the term number sentence, and where everything has a reason, and it all makes sense that way.
Yeah, there were a couple questions in the chat. I saw one about chains. Did they used to measure stuff in chains?
Yeah, they did.
And then how many chains? I saw another one. How many chains do you know? Did you ever use chains?
No. Well, we used, they called it a chain, but that's not what they're asking about. Chain, geez, it's been a while since I calculated chains. Where's my, because I think they're.
Is that anything kind of like a rod? Or they'd be like,
you got chains, you got rods. They had all kinds of different lengths of measurements. But
when we would go camping up in northern Canada or northern Minnesota, all the maps, it was like you'd have to get out and carry your boat over a portage, they would call it, where there was either rapids or you just couldn't get a boat through there. And it would tell you this one's, 3 rods, this one's 5 rods. We did one that was like 110 rods, and we never did that again. Like you think, oh yeah, I can carry stuff, that far, but it's not doing it just one time. You carry your stuff, and then you go back and get more stuff, and then you go back and get the boat. So it's like, it's No, portaging sucks.
So how much do you guys take refraction into account when it comes to like long distance observations, like on mountaintops and things like that?
See, that falls back to the geodetic surveyors. And whenever we do long measurements, most of our equipment, especially in heat waves, you might be able to go 1.5 miles, 2 miles, maybe with heat waves. But you're talking about like where they surveyed from mountaintop to mountaintop.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Yeah. I've never done that, but supposedly they use refraction for that. And I think a lot of that is if you, I've sit and looked at some of those long observations that they done, and you do use their supposed curvature of the earth, you're like, how in the hell did you see from one point to the other? So then they have to use refraction for an excuse to be able to see from one point to the next. Now they say that refraction brings stuff up so you can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was what Zach was pointing out, is how the refraction can bring the floor of his warehouse upward and to cover up his target over a distance. And that's just across the floor of his warehouse, right, Zach?
Yeah, 400 some odd feet. That was diffraction, though.
Diffraction.
That wasn't refraction. Yeah, that was the diffraction one.
Yeah. So there's multiple observations where the atmosphere can affect things. And so I was wondering, like, how much the atmosphere really affects some of your azimuths projection, kind of looking at your target.
Oh, well, like I said, that it depends on the heat waves, how the humidity, heat, and the longest distance I've ever done is like 10,500 feet in the mountains, and it is really hard to see through the heat waves.
The mountain's starting to move at some point. You're looking down the binocular.
Yeah, when you're looking through there, you have a straight pole, and it actually looks like a snake.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a snake as it's weaving back and forth. And to answer your question, a chain is 66 feet.
Okay. Yeah, that's longer than a rod. I think a rod was like 18 feet or 21 feet, maybe 22 feet, somewhere right around there. Probably about a third of a chain. Yeah, I remember seeing those on maps, like hiking type maps. Well, all right. Is there any other questions for Chris in the chat? Type now or forever hold your peace. You have access to a surveyor of 30 years to ask the questions. If there's anything that's been eaten away at you over the years, now is your time. And while I give you some time, we're going to go ahead and kind of start rounding it out. And we'll start with Mr. Kyle Adams. Kyle, what do you got coming up this week, sir?
Next week, I'm planning on doing a video about flat earth science for the super stubborn. And this one's about models, flat earth models, and how we have them. And yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's coming together, I think. I think there's certain things that you just can't get away from. So I don't know about the edges and the ceiling and stuff like that.
There's a lot of questions we don't really know the answer to, but we still have a model.
We have a model of how, there's, absolutely.
We do observe some things. There's some things we just can't observe, but there's a lot of things we can observe.
Yeah, with the stuff we can measure, we know that, certain things work this way, and to recreate it, you got to have these certain types of things going on. So yeah, it's all scalable, right? Electricity, magnetism. So if we're getting these huge magnetic fields on a grand scale, then there needs to be a big, huge torus field out there somewhere. It's just, a prerequisite for a magnetic field.
My big challenge is getting the anti-flat earthers to acknowledge this stuff. And so that's what
you're doing great at that. Stubborn. All the stuff you've been doing, I love how you do your videos, because you go through and you ask a question. They're like, no way, never. And then by the end, they're like, yes, okay, I get it. Or they just quit responding at all.
Yeah.
And it goes crickets.
It's
So
fun.
no, keep it up, man. You're doing great.
Thank you.
And let's see, I'm not seeing any more in the chat. Okay, if plane surveying is accurate up to 100 miles, couldn't you just piece together multiple of those 100-mile surveys?
Well, yeah, you can. And again, the reason why they created this is to hide the fact that we live on a flat plane. So they don't, once they come up with GPS, where you could go, with GPS, you can go 100 miles and take distances. So with the state plane coordinate system, like it's broke up, like Colorado, where I was at, is broke up into 3 different zones. So if you're using it, actually you can't go too far before you're in another zone and you have to get into another coordinate system. So that's another way that they break this up to keep you in your little box.
Have you, I don't know. I mean, Chris has some big Weibos for being a surveyor and coming out and talking about flat Earth. That's yeah. There's a question. Are there any other surveyors who are in agreement?
Yes, I know one in Colorado that helped me with Force the Level that we did.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, there are other surveyors out there who are aware of all this stuff.
Oh, and I got a funny story. My ex-boss that I worked for in Colorado, he actually fired me one time because when I was out of town, I was talking with these ladies at the hotel about flat Earth, and they called him and they were all upset. I ended up getting fired for it. Well, then he brought me back and he was talking to me, and I'm sitting in the office, and he said, you can't talk about this anymore. And I said, just one thing before I zipped my lip. I said, do you realize how much 8 inches per mile adds up to? And he gave me a funny look, and I said, it's like 32 inches in
just 2 miles.
Yeah, 32 inches in 2 miles. And he was like, no, we would see that. No way. And I was like, okay, go on your computer. And I went in there and I had him kick up the Earth curvature calculator and I had him start doing distances. The look on his face, it was fucking priceless.
I bet he didn't want to talk about it anymore after that.
Yeah, he didn't. He was silent. He was like, he just kind of looked down. He was like, if this is true, then we'd have to take this into consideration. I was like, enough said, and I walked out of his office.
That is awesome.
Wow. Hey, you're quite the warrior there. You know, you take the heat and you bear it. Yeah.
Yeah, and surveyors are hard to come by, especially good ones with experience. So
yeah,
Chris knows he could probably go find a job just about anywhere if he really wanted. How long did it take you to find a job when you decided you want to move to Texas?
Actually, I took 2 months. Let's see, I did my resume. It took me 2 days because I hadn't done a resume in like 16 years. put it on LinkedIn, and I had an interview the next day and was working the day after that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully
That's pretty
upgrade.
awesome.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a job, place to go that where you could actually find work and get paid pretty well, look into surveying, people. They're needed. They are. Just don't talk about flat Earth though. Not until you get in there for a while.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you.
How's your family been doing all this though? Have they kind of acknowledged it pretty well, or they put up a lot of resistance?
What's that?
How's your family taking it all? Have they put up a lot of resistance? Have they taken it really well?
I've got one sister that she kind of believes in it. I used to go out with my dad to breakfast every Sunday whenever I was in Denver, and I'd talk about it. But it was one of those deals where he'd listen and he'd kind of nod it off. And I wasn't totally against it, but wasn't into it.
Yeah. Not one you really talk about much at Thanksgiving and stuff like that.
That's awesome. All righty. Let me see. I'll check the chat one more time. Karen B. And what do you got coming up this week?
I've got anti-religious scripture study on Saturday, and I've got coffee talk on Monday. And
Awesome
that's
sauce.
what I've got right now. Yeah, and then working, of course, on Oktoberfest and all of that fun stuff. So I got
When do you
plenty to
think we
do.
may hear about who's going to be there and speakers and stuff like that?
Well, I'm starting to, book people for that now. I have some people that are already coming, of course, of like you and Cami for
Oh,
How the
yeah.
World Works will be there, which is a big deal. It's a really awesome thing that you guys do. So,
Well, I love doing it. Thank you for
and
letting me.
yeah, it's great. And also Ben Balderson will be back, and he wants to do a live Spagirix demo.
Awesome.
Yeah.
People need to know how easy it is to kind of do this stuff. They hear about it and they hear people talking about it and they're like, it's really simple. I mean, Macy, I did mine with mason jars and Everclear and plants out of my garden. And that was like it. That's all you really need. And then a couple other things here and there, but a little stove and stuff like that. But it's stuff you already have for the most likely. I didn't go
Right.
out and have to buy anything to start practicing alchemy.
Right.
Yeah.
So that we've got that going, and I also invited Jesus Freak Computer Geek. You know who that is David Beverly. David
Yeah.
Beverly.
Yeah.
He used to work for NASA. He's been to the the Antarctic, and the Arctic. He
Those
was
are
in.
some stories to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was in the Antarctic, and he says like the other guy says the same thing, that it was daylight, but he never saw the disk of the sun. Like there was no seeing a 24-hour sun. So that's rather interesting. So
There's a question in chat. It's not about surveying, Chris, but it's about the second sun. Just people wondering if you've been out, try to catch any more of that kind of stuff lately.
No, I have not. I've been very busy.
Yeah, I know you've been working like a dog lately, and Houston's been rampaged with that storm.
Yeah, that's been the last 2 weekends, trying to clean all that stuff up, helping out the neighborhood. Last week, my tree, when I cut it down, actually a neighbor on left of me, before I got home, they cut up a bunch of it and put in front of their house. And then when I got home, the neighbor across the street, her and her sons come over, and I cut a bunch of it up with my chainsaw, and we stacked it all up. So they come and picked up all the branches. And after they did that, I was like, that was my tree. So I went and raked up in front of their house and swept up, because they helped out with me. So.
Yeah, I love being neighborly. And it feels good just helping out a neighbor. It does.
And they helped me out tremendously. So
what kinds of things have you seen like out there? Like you're going out in the wilderness and doing land surveying, right?
Actually, no. The last since I've been here in Texas, I've been doing strictly roads and bridges.
Oh, okay. I'm like wondering, have you picked up like any kind of like ancient ruins and stuff like that, or anything like that? But
no, he's ran into some wildlife when he was in Colorado.
Yeah, when I was in Colorado, I come across quite a bit of wildlife. A moose. That was a good moose. Walked up on me when I was staking out a house one day, stand 20 or 30 feet from me, and he didn't bother me at all. He was like, I think animals can sense when you're not going to harm them. Because he looked at me, I looked at him, and it was like, I'm doing my thing, you do your thing. He just kept on eating leaves, and everything was good.
Yeah, I remember me and you were sitting by that fire one morning when we were out camping in Colorado. Is Guanella in the Rockies?
Yeah, Guanella Pass. Yeah.
So yeah, we were in the Rockies, and it was early. It was like 6 a.m, something like that. 2 dogs sitting here, and all of a sudden I was like, Chris, moose. Yeah, just huge, enormous. Yeah, she didn't want anything to do with us. She saw us, and then was like, okay, I'm out of here. But yeah, she was maybe 50 feet tops?
Oh, yeah.
She was close, yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful out there. You'll see some really beautiful stuff. Pretty much about any wood you go, but yeah, Colorado, and the elk, weirdest sounding animals I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Sounds like a velociraptor from the what are the Jurassic Park movies, kind of. It's like
For
a
sure.
weird whistle. Yeah. I woke up to that one night, first time hearing it, thinking the aliens were coming to get me or something. I didn't know what it was. And I peek my head out there and look, and there's like 4 elks crossing a stream like 20 yards away. I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. But that's going to do it, folks. Thank you all so much for coming and hanging out. Again, Chris, thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully, everybody kind of got a little hint of how they hide this thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes it very obvious they're doing something with just the simple fact that you have to put it into this equation. You know, that makes no sense. That just doesn't make sense to me. So right there is like a good tell that, yeah, there is tomfoolery going on here. And if you really want to dig into it, it's some math, but you could figure it out. And Karen and Kyle, thank you so much.
Always a
Hopefully,
pleasure.
I think Cammie will be back next week. Yeah, I'll be picking her up next Wednesday, so she'll be back for the show next Thursday. And I'm excited for Coffee Talk Monday morning.
Yeah, nice seeing you again, Karen and Kyle.
Yeah, you too,
Yeah, you
Chris.
too.
Always.
All righty, folks. Well, that's going to do it. You all remember, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind because there's truth inside. Peace out, everyone.
Peace.